drama the observer enter the wooden horse. But this time the Trojans tell their side of Fall of Troy. Night Manager creator retells Homer's epic with a modern slant and fresh point of view in new BBC series Sarah Hughes. Saturday the 27th of January 2018 09:45 EST, last modified on Friday the 16th of February 2018 19.33 EST. Share on Facebook, share on Twitter, share via email, view more sharing options, share on LinkedIn, share on Pinterest, share on Google+, share on WhatsApp, share on Messenger. Close. The epic tale of Helen of Sparta and how she came to leave her husband, family and home for Paris of Troy, sparking a decade-long war, has delighted generations. Now an 8-part BBC/Netflix miniseries hopes to thrill us once more with the tale of the wooden horse, this time by telling the story, made famous by Homer, from the Trojan point of view. Troy, Fall of a City, which will air on BBC One this spring, was created and co-written by David Farr, Associate Director of the Royal Shakespeare Company and the man behind the much-praised recent adaptation of The Night Manager. I wanted to tell the other side because we know the Greek story so well. It's been beautifully told by Homer and on stage in their Greek tragedies and in films, says Farr, who won praise for his bold staging of the Odyssey of the Bristol Old Vic a decade ago. If you look at the story from the Trojan point of view, it becomes a very different tale. The Greeks are a Western force on an Eastern shore demanding justice and retribution, and I think that resonates particularly strongly with a modern audience. We can all think of images we've seen from this century and the last which might remind us of the fall of Troy. He was also keen to build an emotional relationship between the viewer and the city. I want people to watch and think about what it would feel like to be under siege, particularly as the war dragged on and people began to turn on each other, and what it would mean for a city like Troy, a hugely powerful and sophisticated trading post, to fall. The series has already attracted controversy, with a small but concerted internet campaign bemoaning the casting of 2 black actors in prominent roles, David Gyasi as Achilles and Hakeem Kazim as Zeus. I don't have any time for that, Farr says. It's very unpleasant. It's a tiny number of highly vocal protesters and I am genuinely mystified by it. We made a very conscious decision that all roles were up for grabs, and I'm proud of that decision because it means that we cast the possible actors. When people watch they will see that David has the truth and spirit of Achilles, which is far more important than any notion about what he might or might not have looked like. Farr is also braced for complaints from those who believe that there is only one way to narrate this tale. Our story draws not only on Homer and the Greek dramatists but also on Shakespeare and Chaucer and other retellings. We have also invented bits, and I'm entirely comfortable with it. These are living stories and every retelling adds another layer to the myth. Farr gives similarly short shrift to comparisons between Troy, Fall of a City and the fantasy series Game of Thrones. Yet he acknowledges that such parallels may be inevitable, given both the epic scope of the new series and its focus on political maneuvers and internal conflict in the Trojan palace. Game of Thrones is fundamentally based on a Machiavellian, almost Jacobean, idea of power and intrigue, he says. By contrast, our story is perhaps a more melancholy one. Our characters are driven by great passions but they're not cynical about their world, and there's nothing cynical about the story we wanted to tell. Instead, the key to Troy, Fall of a City lies in its treatment of the story of Paris, played by Lewis Hunter, and Helen, Belladine. Their relationship is often pushed to the sidelines after the initial elopement occurs, but here it takes center stage. There's a tendency to portray Paris as little more than a pretty boy, but there's a very different way to see him, says Farr. He's a young man who has grown up not knowing who he really is. He then finds himself reunited with his family and desperate to fit in. Yet he's also a rough peasant boy, so he can't help but react against that privilege. Similarly, Helen feels trapped by her marriage and unable to escape what appears to be her destiny until this peasant prince arrives. They're both outsiders, and it makes sense that they click, initially in a chemical and you're way. But, underneath, there's something far more profound. This is the story of a couple who fall illicitly in love almost despite themselves, and it leads to catastrophe. Topics: Drama, The Observer, BBC One, Television Industry, BBC Television, Netflix. Share on Facebook, share on Twitter, share via email, share on LinkedIn, share on Pinterest, share on Google+, share on WhatsApp, share on Messenger. Reuse this content